Again, welcome everyone to yet another uLaw webinar. And today we're going to be focusing the next 30 to 45 minutes talking about the new user interface within uLawPractice. The agenda, as we always do, is talking really about the UI. There was a lot of feedback, a lot of positive and constructive criticism about the user interface being stale and old and kind of boring. And one of our customers said, I really love this program, I look at it every day, but it's kind of really getting boring right now. And we've obviously taken the time. We've focused a lot on the core functionalities of the product, but over the period of the last few weeks and the couple of months prior, when we started bootstrapping the new uLawPractice, you're not going to see a lot of change in terms of the maneuverability and the navigation with the new UI, because we don't want to retrain and have our existing clients be pissed off on that. But there are subtle changes that have been done to the user interface to make it a lot more intuitive, and that's what you're going to see what we've done. And that's one of the biggest motivation, is to take the advantage, take the opportunity to make it easier and a little bit more intuitive without sacrificing the navigation that you're used to within the product. We're going to learn about kind of the ease of use, how we've kind of granularized a lot of the actions within certain button clicks, and there's a method to the madness, if you will, in how you go about your day-to-day, and that's kind of a sample flow that we're going to walk through. A sample flow of how a legal professional would use uLaw, and it's going to include certain components that you probably do on a day-to-day basis, but as we go through that, you're going to hopefully recognize and appreciate how the new UI changes, as well as the granularity in the buttons that we've now introduced, help you through that process, again, without having too much of a retraining. And pretty much that's about it. I mean, we've always gone through presentations and slides. To kind of mix it up today, I intend to just deep dive into the product and do a walkthrough of the product, kind of give you, I would say, a good view of almost all the user interface components. As much as we use a product, many times we don't necessarily understand or focus or put the investment of our time to understand everything that product has to offer. We would really like you to maximize the use of uLaw and the features and functionalities that are in the product. They're obviously there for a reason, and this would also be an opportunity for us to kind of showcase some of the elements that you probably don't know exist. Okay, and I want to focus on a very simple example of adding a new client, how the contacts panel has changed as well, generating documents. We've introduced a bunch of new documents, such as the source of contact. We've improved the conflict screening by bringing in additional parties involved. We're going to create a matter. We're going to generate retainers documents, as you probably know, but we're going to also showcase to you the power of the question mark. The question mark is a new button that has been introduced into uLaw. It's very contextual, and I'm also going to walk you through the analytics, not just the UI aspect of it, but the analytics deep dive that we have both at the accounting level as well as the contact and matter level, which is very new into the uLaw product. Okay, so without any further ado, let me jump into uLaw. I'll bring up my annotation. That way it makes it simpler as I introduce and bring more of our friends into the mix. Again, a gentle reminder that this is not accredited for CPD hours. This is the next 30 to 45 minutes, a really nice walkthrough of the uLaw features and the new user interface. We do have our CPD upcoming next week, next Friday from 3 to 4 for 1 hour of CPD hours accredited by the Law Society. Okay, so when you log into uLaw, obviously you've noticed with the recent build, 3.4.4, you have this panel on the left-hand side. Okay, so if you kind of look at some of our help files or some of the older YouTube videos, you probably will then appreciate how it would basically just be these major dashboards and just some line items. So we've got some images to make it easier. I know it doesn't make a big difference on a laptop, but this user interface has now been developed for a lot of the tech gurus that are on the call today on a Bootstrap framework. What that really means is, if let's say you use uLaw on a browser, whether it's Safari, Chrome browser, on let's say a tab, or let's say you use it on your iPad, instead of using our app, if you were to just use it on the browser, it renders way better on browsers, on tabs, and devices. For phone users of uLaw, we obviously highly recommend, even for users of uLaw on an app, on the both tab as well as the Apple devices, we do highly encourage you to download the app. But if you do want a full-fledged version of uLaw and would like to use the Chrome browser, you will notice that uLaw renders way better, faster, using this new UI. Okay, so we've got some images. The dashboard kind of remains to be the same. The contacts panel, again, going with that Web3 savviness. This looks way better on those iPads if you're using on the Chrome, but it definitely looks well on a laptop as well. The important aspect from the Bootstrap is you're able to quickly search for clients by alphabet. The search functionality has been drastically improved. Now we follow the Google standard of search. You're just typing in where you may know. So this is the new and improved search within uLawPractice, where anything that you know that you type in, it's a contextual search. It kind of really buffers and searches in real time for any information that you may know in real time. As you would type it in Google, it brings up the results automatically. So if you know green and you're typing in green, as you continue typing green, it pretty much brings up those results. Okay, so that's a new and improved search functionality. The look and feel of that probably looks the same, but the engine that's running behind it, introducing along with this new user interface, has made that search for contacts that much more faster. Very similar to the quick view are the search which exists across your contacts, matters, and quick view. If you're going to just quickly search for any information within the quick view, which are all related to your matter, you just make it that much more faster. The quick view, as you know, allows you to search for matter information across active, closed, archived, or all matters. And some of the new changes that we've brought is the ability for you to sort by title. Before, it was basically based on file number and only a certain column. So now you have the whole sorting based on client. If you have your own code file number, you can do that. So again, simple changes, but effective, very effective when you're on the go, when you're using a device that's connected through not through your Wi-Fi or not through your plugged-in internet. If you're necessarily searching for data-based devices, you will see a drastic improvement in the performance with this new user interface. Okay, again, the same search that's been plugged in. The user interface probably looks the same, but the components that go behind that search have been improved. And all of these, the iconic aspects of it, accounts, calendar, there's kind of, again, a reason for that. It's just faster to access. It's touch. So now this browser, I'm sure you don't realize this, but I'm using a touchscreen laptop and I just touched it. So it just makes it a lot more easier if you're using a touchscreen laptop or a touchscreen device and you're using a browser on it. Most of the information in terms of sizes, fonts have been improvised, if you will, or modified to support that touchscreen component of your day-to-day use. And the newest component of the uLaw overall framework or menu item obviously is our analytics. And the analytics has gone through a change as well in terms of you being able to generate these SPI documents. So let me say I generate an expense chart by category for a certain date range. I can do it for this month. Before, we only had this limited in terms of how much the realty space you had, but with this little arrow, if I click that, you pretty much hide your search criteria and give you a little bit more realty space to actually showcase the information that you need to see. So little subtle changes that you're going to notice as we move along. These are the same components that we're going to be using right through all other aspects of the uLaw user interface. Okay. See, now you have realty space for as much as 6 analytics items. Before, you were constrained to only have 4 that would look nominally well within a user interface in one quick snapshot. With this new user looking interface, you're now going to be able to do up to 6 different analytics items similar to the dashboard. Okay. And what I'm going to try and accomplish over the next 20 to 25 minutes is kind of walk you through, I would say, a sample flow of what we think would be a good use case to use, something that I use on my onboarding sessions. And I'm going to walk you through some of the user interfaces as we go along that workflow. Okay. So let's start with our agenda was to add a new contact. So let's say I click on contacts, new contact, add to clients. A new component of the user interface or of the revised UI and the product really is this new source of contact. You may have noticed some of our clients did ask us that question about what that is. So let's say you're adding Roger Anderson as a new client. This really allows you to understand how did Roger Anderson know you as a legal professional? What was the lead source? How did they get to know about you? And maybe this was an external referral from a friend. You can make a note now on that external referral. And as you continue to add information, we've made the user interface, again, keeping in mind that mobile device friendly, bootstrapping it so that it's easily read across devices that are connected to the internet. And you can see the font, the overall look and feel of it allows you to use that touch screen. So I'm basically you don't see it, but I'm basically going to touch that and type in on the screen. I'm able to touch that, again, whether you're using a touch pen or just your finger. That was one of the biggest feedback that we got, that the UI was too small. The fonts were too small. It did not provide room for that. With the app, if you enter a client's phone number, you're now able to dial that phone number directly through the app. Or if you have a Wi-Fi based device or if you have a Skype calling, now you can save this information, and let's say you're using a laptop, you would be able to Skype call that from your laptop to your clients. So that's kind of an added integration with the phone number feature, if you will. So if you look at it, we've kind of broken it down as different components. You have the overall alphabet, that's the first name, first alphabet, easiest to recognize. Broken it by notes, address, and any additional information that you may have on the contact. We've continued to keep the QR code for users on BlackBerry to be able to synchronize this with your phone. For Android users, well, some of the BlackBerry phones today are integrated with Android, so if you use that, then it's as good as an Android phone. but then if you are an older version of BlackBerry, you could still use the QR code to save that information directly into your contacts. And let's say we go ahead, a new document that has been included in this interface is the source of contact. Okay, so whether I do it by date range, let me go ahead and change the date range to, let's say, today. And I'll do the same thing here. Oh, got the wrong year. 2 ahead of time. Really bad day for dates for me. I could go ahead and click today. I might as well have done that. Or I could do it for the week. I could do it for the month. I could do it for the quarterly. And what you're going to notice is, I'll do it for today, we're going to be able to generate a document that really tells you where did you get a lot of your different sources from. So that's really a good report that tells you where your marketing dollars are working for you. So that's a relatively newer document under your document generation. We've improved on the question mark. The question mark really provides you deeper dive analytics, and we looked at that in our webinar last week. But for those who quite often wonder what this means, the question mark gives you more insight into the information you're looking to search for. In this context, the question mark relates to the contact. If you find that question mark in a matter, it's probably going to give you more matter analytics. Okay? So if I hover over it and click on uLaw Insight, and you're going to see the new button schemes have changed. So the way we've kind of colored it so that it's easier for you to recognize is green being a positive workflow. Red buttons would mean an action that you can take on it or a warning. And the orange button that you're going to see would also be an action that you would take, but it's a subtle warning. It's not a mandatory action item that you would have to take. That's kind of how we've broken it down. And these, again, render far better on your browsers, Safari, as well as Chrome browsers on your mobile device. Okay, so this question mark, let's jump into the matter, and we're going to talk more about that question mark. So subtle changes in the contacts panel compared to what you're used to before, but the navigation, the action button remain to be the same. Okay, so let's go ahead, and you obviously know that under action you could do a conflict screening report. When I spoke about a little bit more convoluted conflict screening, traditionally we were conflict screening on first name, last name. You could check for matters and events, but when you actually check for matters, we also include additional party checks. So if Anderson was an additional party in a different matter, we're able to bring that information as well, something that's new and very powerful. So when I go into the matter screen, when I create a new matter, again, nothing significant has changed overall in terms of the user interface, except for these icons, again, for that touch screen, if you will. So let me just say, I'm speeding on high 401, and you know how you can classify these different areas of practice. I'm just going to go ahead and click Save. And you notice you necessarily do not see a question mark at this time. There is no question mark in this user interface for this matter, because this is a brand new matter, and all you've done is you've created a file number, right? I'm sure that's how you kind of go ahead and create a matter file for a client. Some of our clients intake retainers. If you do, we'll kind of go ahead and click that new retainer. Again, a new screen, a little bit more spread out, again, for that touch feel. We spoke about the 3 colors. You can either apply, cancel, accept payments through credit card, and that's a new integration with Monaris or Pivotal. I'm just going to go ahead and say this is a check number, and that goes into my trust account. And this is a newer information that we're capturing for some of the clients who use it today and who already know what it is. Great. If not, essentially, if someone else is paying on behalf of Roger Anderson, if this is being paid by Stephanie Anderson or Roger's dad, then you can put their information in. Then the receipt gets created for their name. So it's basically the amount is received from, and the receipt is sent under the attention of that particular name. So we could go ahead and create a receipt, hit apply, and that's as simple as how you would intake a retainer, and you can now generate a retainer receipt and download it. Our documents panel obviously integrates with Google Drive, and we've really expanded on the different integration points within Google Drive. So now you can bring in folders, you can create folders within Google Drive, and you can bring granular interfaces into uLaw with those folders as well. We're almost on the verge of releasing the OneDrive as well as the Dropbox that a lot of our clients have been asking for. We hope we'll have that by the end of this year. That would kind of be the next evolution. And hopefully in the new year, we're going to be bringing the opportunity for you to drag and drop these documents right into uLaw. Right now, this is something that you would drag and drop into the Google Drive, but we're going to bring in a feature where you're going to be able to just drag and drop documents right into uLaw. You don't even have to go into those different third-party document storage systems. Okay. I think there's a quick question about sound. Do request that you dial into the phone number provided. I apologize for the slight delay in sending this information, but it is part of your email that you received for this webinar. So let's jump back into Matter. So a couple of ways in which you can search for information. Either you could search by, oh, a lot of plates just coming in. So you can either search for the name under contacts, or you can search for, if you've already created a matter for that particular contact, you can search for that individual right within the matter screen. Or if you know that you've just created a contact, or if you've just created the matter, you can go right to that matter through the dashboard itself. So we've just added that retainer, and now that you've added that retainer, you probably will notice that question marks show up. And what that question mark really means is that it's able to provide you with any ledger information that's pertinent to that matter, whether it's general or trust-based. If there's information regarding to ledger, if there's information that's regarding to trust transfer, payments, all of that is going to be under this one button now that you can use instead of having to jump around different action buttons within the software. You want to focus on that question mark. Always make it a habit, practice to click on that question mark to give you more insight and actionable insights. So instead of before, we had to go into the accounts menu option and then do a document generation of the ledger and then choose the client. Instead, we've got the other way around now. So you can just click on the ledger, and it's going to automatically bring up that trust ledger for Roger Anderson right within the screen. So anytime you want to have a look at the ledger of that client, you can go and click on that question mark for that matter and click on ledger. Now, the uLaw Insight obviously will give you more information about what's happened so far. and you probably already know that. The no pending invoice before, for a very short time, we had not made this clickable, but now we've made that clickable. It would list down all of the invoices that you've raised so far, along with an invoice number if you have. And if you need to reverse invoices, you would see that button right under here for you to be able to reverse that. So basically, we've taken all the actions that you can basically take by clicking the menu options that you have under this action button, and we've spread it in a very contextual, easy to use, easy to maneuver way, so you don't have to remember which menu option you got to remember to do what. Just remember the question mark is very contextual. What I mean by that is if let's say I go back and I edit this retainer, or let's say I refund that retainer, that question mark would not exist. In terms of docketing time, you're going to notice a little change in the user interface of this Matter screen. It's definitely the fonts are, again, tailored. I continue to re-emphasize it's tailored for touchscreen and it's tailored for the newer devices, mobile devices as well. We've given you more space now to type in the description. We've improved our way in how you can bulletize and italics and componentize these. Yes, so that's a really good point someone just asked. To reverse it, we've still kept it under action because, again, we don't want you to accidentally do it. We've given you the option to reprint the invoices within this context, but let's say you wanted to reverse an invoice, we still, because this is a special case, we don't want you to accidentally click on that button and reverse it. So the reversal of any invoice would still remain under here. Okay, let's say I've gone ahead and docketed the time. I put a 1 hour docket on that. You're going to notice the billable time change. It's going to take the $150 plus tax. There's always a question about how do I include, let's say the taxes are included. For those who don't know, in uLaw, you just have to make this a 0%, and that pretty much makes this a tax included matter. So it's not going to include, basically it's not going to charge HST separately or the tax jurisdiction based on where you're from. If you want to bring back the default tax, you just go and delete that and save it, and you're going to notice the HST back right on there. Okay, so to generate an invoice, you're going to just go in. For those who don't know, we have a new pre-bill, and the new product allows you to generate pre-bills based on the same themes that you probably would use to generate the invoice. So you kind of really have a good look at the preview, just the way you would send it to your client. Okay, so let me go ahead and create a new invoice. I'll create this in our new winter theme. Click on the invoice button, which is a green button, and then you wait for it to click on now the green colored download button. And now going back to the power of the question mark, if you're into trust, you've done that. You need to now move money from trust to general. All you do is click on that question mark, and this one screen should enable you to do all those tasks that you need to get done. The pending trust transfer is an actionable item that's marked in a red button for that amount of $169.50. So that question mark is really the point that I'm trying to drive, that gives you the maneuverability from one step at a time. So going back to the question about the no pending invoice, if I were to click on it, it's going to give you that invoice, the created date, and the ability for you to reprint it. And as one of our dear clients mentioned, if you needed to reverse that invoice, it's pretty much the last option that you have here. and it says the admin mode is not enabled. So this is another feature that, or UI component that we want to clarify. To be able to activate admin mode, you click on Accounts, Action Administrator, and because it says Enable Admin in checkmark, it doesn't really mean it's enabled. You have to click on it to enable it. So if you see Enable Admin, it's really not enabled. Okay, that's the learning, if you will. If I were to go back and click on Action, and let's say you wanted to reverse this invoice because you did not add your disbursement, come here, reverse that invoice, and that's it. Now it's a very simple step to be able to reverse invoice, and you can continue with your matter. You can add a new matter, new docket, and we've changed the way you would toggle between billable time and flat rate. So let's say this is a flat rate, you would just click on the action button and toggle it to flat rate. And for the disbursements, again, a little subtle change in terms of the user interface. We've got the paid from general, paid from trust, and any miscellaneous expenses that you may want to add into that file. So if I'm going to be paying out of general, we've included various billable types. You've got billable, mileage, unit rate, and your travel time as well. And this, as you probably know, changes contextually based on what you type in. So if you type in an application fee, you're going to notice that this UI would then change to accommodate what the amount is. And if I said $75 and tax exempt, that's all there is going to be to that disbursement. And if I click on the question mark, you see that there's no pending trust transfer, there's no client owes, only because there has been no invoices raised so far. So let's say go back and raise an invoice. And this time around, I'll probably do an Xmas, so we're not there yet. These are some of the newer themes that we've added as we know where we're heading. I go back in here. Now I'm able to click the transfer button. Okay, so let's just go ahead and go with the flow. I can either choose to click on all of my checkboxes, but it would still only bring what's the eligible amount. So that's a newer feature, if you will, to make it easier on you. We take care of what's the eligible amount that we bring in, and you can just go ahead and click on all. I'm sure everybody knows the Form 9A, a new change to the Form 9A that we've brought it again to make it a little bit more easier on the eye. If in Ontario you choose the electronic fund transfer, we provide you the Form 9A, and we explicitly mention trust and that it's a debit. And if it's the general account, we mention that it's a credit account. And for those who don't know, we do store this information. We just ask you for it one time. So it's just almost a one-time event of being able to enter this information. And once I hit download, you're going to generate that Form 9A. And let me just go back into my matter, add another docket. Probably make this a 4-hour docket. And now you're going to notice we've also changed some of the user interface components with regards to the maps that we're now drawing. The pie charts and the bar charts are now, again, highly customized for mobile devices that are on the go. So these charts run or generate much faster than the older version of uLaw, especially if you're on your mobile data. And if you're in a remote area where internet is not that great, we still have that bootstrap framework that allows you to generate and showcase this user interface in a much faster way. And now if I go back to my question mark, again, nothing. but the status of invoice pending pretty much tells you all that you have to generate an invoice, and that's pretty much how you kind of go about it. You intake that client, you add a retainer if that's a component of the equation, add dockets, raise an invoice, move that money, and if there's money pending now in this case of $318, now that you raised that invoice, if I click that question mark, you're going to notice you have the ability to not only transfer the pending trust transfer, but then right away in the same screen it tells you how much he owes. And a newer feature within our invoice, so let's say that was that final document, a newer feature in our invoice, especially when the client owes you money, is the ability to integrate this new link. You will start, especially if you're integrated with either Monaris or Pivotal, you're going to notice this link that lets your client actually pay for that at their own leisure. Okay, so this is a newer feature within uLaw. Let me go back, and again, I'll not even use that, I'll just use the All button. It's just going to move to 360. I'll hit the Transfer button, and you just have to be patient with me. There's kind of a method to the madness as to why I'm doing all of this. So let's say now you have to intake a client payment. You don't have to go even into the client payment button here. Please remember to just use the question mark. So whenever that payment comes through, if they called you in to pay through credit card, or if, let's say they sent you a check for the remainder of the $318, and if you typed in $675, which may not be the number, it will still default it to what is owed. And again, someone else paid for it, you can put that in. If it was a cash, you put it as a cash. Give them a receipt and hit apply. Now that, let's say, this matter is kind of done, you know how you would probably drag and drop the documents into the appropriate Google Drive folders, or in a few months we're going to have your OneDrive and Dropbox. You're going to be able to drag and drop those documents in. But I wanted to highlight real quick, under document generation, under timeline, this is a newer feature and not many clients know about it. If at any time you wanted to quickly understand, for that matter, what kind of a timeline have I gone through? This is a newer report that kind of just talks to you by minute, by hour, what's really happened with this matter. Okay, so this matter timeline tells you that you created that, it was edited, a new retainer was taken in, there was an invoice reversal that was done, you added an application fee, there was a client payment, there was an invoice that was raised, which is 2392, another invoice was raised, and the third invoice was raised as the final item. So this matter timeline pretty much tells you almost an audit history of what really happened within that matter. And if you were to take that same concept into your accounts, it basically tells you everything that's happened within that matter with regards to an accounting perspective. So you've got that retainer, you've raised that general expense fees, there was a general payment. So these are two new features, again, under document generation, under timeline, whether it's related to the accounts or the matter. Okay, the forms remain to be the same. We continue to update the forms as you go along. So for POA and HTA, you can continue to generate, whatever is the offense, and it's pretty much going to generate those forms. And marking this closed or archived remains to be the same. Okay. Now, if I were to jump into the analytics, again, under accounts, you have the same analytics, and there's a slightly deeper dive within the analytics that we provide you under accounts. So you can actually go by contact, and you can uLaw Insight, and you can choose a specific client for whom you want to understand further analytics. So if I'm going to be choosing Roger Anderson, it also brings in all the different matters that are related to Roger Anderson. But the same concept will now apply to the question mark under the contacts. And this is the point I wanted to drive, is that the question mark, the power of the question mark is really in the context in which it's being used. So let's say a couple of months go by and Roger Anderson calls you back and there's a new assistant who's intaking that client, and when they search for that name, they probably want to have a better insight into Roger Anderson. They really want to know what's really happened with this client, right? So it's been paid, nothing is pending, it's a clean slate. They pretty much know that that's the information that will be pertinent. And if they want to click on matter, obviously takes them into that matter screen right away. And as I mentioned before, the analytics, which is again part of the new user interface experience, in this particular setting at least I only have 4, but if I were to change that into 6, which I would do at the dashboard level, I would say the number of analytics items to be as high as 6. You can actually have up to 6 dashboard items at any time, or analytics items, especially with this ability for you to move and maneuver the search criteria up or down. Just makes it easier. So just as a recap, again, I know this is for those who've been using uLaw and are newer to the product. I hope this was good insight. For those who already are embedded into the workflow on a daily basis, you probably have noticed some of these changes. But as I said, there are certain features and functionalities, especially around timeline, as well as the analytics, as well as the capability for you to generate these additional reports, whether it's source of contact or others, and the overall color scheme and the iconization of the product. And this is only the beginning. The fact that now we're on a Bootstrap framework, and the fact that we're faster on your mobile devices, as well as we're faster on any internet-connected device, allows us to display and be visually more appealing than I guess we were before, and we're only going to continue pushing that boundary. So before, what used to be really hard to see on a 4 or 6, we've kind of made that easier now. So going back, the dashboard, the iconization of the menu panel on the left, and this does not change. I mean, it's really relatively, kind of fixed. So if you look at this on your iPad or on your tab on any browser, you're going to notice that it kind of fits the screen. So it's kind of that single view snapshot of all the information. So we kind of looked at that. We looked at how one creates a contact, creates a matter, the quick view where you can actually search for that information. You're going to notice that the default list of quick view matters would be active. Only if you choose for matters that are all matters, because ideally we like for you only to be searching on active matters. So if you want to choose for Roger Anderson, because of the fact that it's all matters, you can obviously bring up speeding on 401. But if I only had this for active matters, you probably will not find Roger Anderson unless there are other Roger Andersons. But by default, it only is looking for active clients. If you wanted to search for closed or archived, you would come in specifically, mention that in the search criteria, and then search for it. And within the matters, now these are all touchscreen, I would say, modified to be a little bit more friendly with touchscreen, whether it's our disbursements, rates, additional parties that you add. And we've added a lot more into the additional parties, including the adjusters, the co-accused, and again, because we have included criminal forms into uLaw, which is a newer addition. As I walk you through the forms right here, so some of the newer forms that we've added, criminal acts, and we've kind of split the different accident benefits, LAT, and ABS. And please don't mind the beta version. We're going to be removing that very shortly. Okay, so I'm going to open the floors for any questions that you may have at this time with regards to kind of the webinar. And if you've used the product and you have any specific questions about it, please feel free to use the chat window to ask any questions that you may have, and we'll be more than happy to answer that. The question is, would this session be available for download? Absolutely, yes. As always, we recorded this session, and it is available to you on demand. Just give us a couple of days before we send out an email with the link to it, and it will probably be on YouTube as well. You could use the chat window, or you could send us an email, as many of our clients do. Okay, I have a question about. Well, thank you very much. We sincerely appreciate any feedback, and we hope we can do our best to make your lives easier. Okay, there's a question. Has year-end process changed? Okay, good question. In terms of the year-end, I may have to take that question offline, Brian. But we're making some changes to how we go about reconciliation as well as the year-end. Then maybe we can take that offline from this conversation. And we'll certainly send you a lot more information about how we've gone about doing that. Perfect. A question is about how does this UI differ from the new iOS app? That's a good question. Now, we've released an iOS app, and if you are an Apple user, you would be able to search for it on the Apple Store. Now, the user interface for apps are totally different from the user interface that we have for our browser. And one of the big changes that we've done, in fact, we've got two different user interfaces, one specific, in fact, three. The Android is separate from the iOS, which is separate from the web browser. The apps at this stage right now are for consumption, read-only. That's another big change that's to be expected in the new year, where we're going to be allowing the ability for our clients to add dockets, scan receipts, things of, some of the cooler features that you expect out of apps today. But that's totally a different user interface compared to the browser interface. The big change to the browser was really the iconization and making it ready to be easily readable and a little bit more jazzy, if you will, around touchscreen devices, because that's really the technology and that's where the world is moving towards. A lot of our clients today continue to use, let's say on an iPad, on a Safari, and they would just open up the browser version of uLaw. They don't necessarily, because that's where you can docket your time and everything else, today at least. But we think, again, very positively, we think once the iOS and the app versions really allow you to docket time and do a lot of these things, then you probably won't come into the browser version anyways. But till then, we're making changes to make it a lot more easier. Is it compatible with Linux? I mean, it is. It really comes down to what browser you're using. So we really don't worry about the underlying operating system. But we still will recommend if you use, let's say, a Firefox or a Chrome on the Linux. So yes, the operating system really doesn't matter. It's just the browser that you're using. Is there any new feature for the accounting? We've added a few features, and we don't know how new it is. And this is one of the questions that Brian had, and we'll get back to him separately about the year-end. But then this new feature about importing bank statements. So we're working towards getting our general reconciliation as well. For the moment, we support the imports from all of the leading institutions or banks that you work with, as well as credit unions. So let's say you import a monthly statement from TD or CIBC, you would be able to import that right into uLaw. We pack up all of that information, and then we bring it into uLaw so that it's easier for you to reconcile. So that would probably be one of the newer ones. Yes, that's a good point. Yes, we are working on, so the question is, how soon can we have the ability to input the docket on the go? That's a great question, and that's our next big release in terms of the app, and that's to be expected in the new year. And when I say new year, again, I would think end of January is when that next wave of the app is. We just released the iOS app, I would say late September, early October. So the next version of an app that would reflect both on Android and iOS would probably be towards end of January, early first week of Feb. Yeah, that would certainly be a game changer for us, I agree, because that would then allow you to do a lot of the tasks that you do with uLaw on your phone. The question is, are we able to see the Android app in action? I will make it a point to bring that up or send you information to the audience today about our apps. Because I'm using a laptop to demonstrate this product, I'm unable to show you what that app looks like, but you should be able to search for the app. If you don't have it already, just search for it on your app store or Play Store if you're using an Android phone. So you just have to go to Play Store and search for uLawPractice, one word, download it, and you are actually able to use, whether it's your own account or if you use the Playground account, we even give you access for you to choose between those different accounts and use those individual logins. So I'll probably keep the line open for a few more minutes for any questions that might be. Okay, so if you've already entered the banking account previously, then we capture that and we understand that. And when you import that bank statement, we would tell you that it's already been imported or you've already entered that data. The reason I'm struggling to showcase that is I don't have a great example of a file. Thanks, Bruce. Yeah, great weekend to you too. I'm going to try and see if I can. Oh, there you go. So let me give you an example of how you would import that file. Let's say I choose that account activity and say upload. It's basically going to upload And you're going to notice here that it's already imported or an action has been already taken. But let's say for this particular transaction, and this is obviously in a really old file, you could take the action and you could say it's an office expense, and you can put it as a meal and hit submit. Okay. Now if I were to come back, because you've already taken that action, if I were to come back and choose the account activity file again, if I were to choose the same CSV file, it would say that it's already been imported. Okay, there's a question about, yes, so for example, yes, that's a really good question. It talks about how do we understand what these mean. I'm trying to look at an example. So if, let's say you have core breakfast, probably not. Traditionally what happens is if it's an SO, and when you take, let's say, an action on it, we know that it's in a gas expense. So there's a smart dictionary that allows us to scan basically the description and then automatically apply the appropriate office expense according to that. This has already been taken, but if you look at I would think, and it learns too. So let's say this time, you mentioned that Starbucks was a meal. The next time that we read a Starbucks, then we know that that's potentially a meal as well. So that's one of the newer features, I would say, from an accounting standpoint, is the ability for you to import that data. And I hope I answered that question, Brian. And another new feature that we're going to be, thank you. Yeah, another new feature that you should expect really fast, and will be, and again, as part of our client correspondences, we do send updates to our clients via email about the newer features that are being added. We're also bringing general reconciliation as kind of an automated way, or if you use a bookkeeper, then we pretty much allow you to add that information directly into the UI. It kind of makes it much more easier for, let's say you have a bookkeeper or an accountant doing this for you, then they would be able to do that much faster. Okay, so it is that time of the day when we'll have to stop this webinar. We wish you a very happy weekend, and look forward to seeing you at our next webinar, which is actually next Friday. Today's 11th, yes, so the next Friday, and that is accredited for CPD. And with that, we'll thank you for being with us today. Hope this was an informational session. Please feel free to send us your feedback so we can make this better for you, and we'll talk to you next week. Thank you.